Thank you everybody for joining us for our final Discover Boston College virtual open house event, the final Q&A with admission staff. My name is Lauren Riley and I'm an Assistant Director of Admission in the Office of Undergraduate Admission at Boston College, and I will be your MC for this event. I am joined by two of my colleagues who I will have introduce themselves in a moment. Now, for over a month, we have been hosting virtual events featuring faculty, staff, students, and we've been talking about a range of topics from admission advice to student life and so much more. And for this event, we have ultimately come up with the questions that we have received regularly throughout our virtual open house event and regularly through our communications with students that we are going to discuss here with you today to make sure that you feel prepared and have your questions answered as you enter this college search and of course application process. And then of course we also want to hear from you. So we also have 3 additional colleagues who are behind the scenes managing that Q&A feature. So if you do have questions as this session goes on, please do not hesitate to throw your questions in there, and then we will have our colleagues answer as many of those as possible for us. But before we keep going, I'm going to turn to my colleagues here and have them introduce themselves. So Chris, let's start with you.
Sure. Thanks, Lauren. So my name is Chris O'Brien. I've been in the admissions office since 1999. So that's more than 20 years, but I don't know if it's 21. I forget. I cover the territory of the Midwest. So I bring the nicest people to Boston College, even though they're a little passive aggressive. They generally are the nicest people that come to Boston College. And I have various other responsibilities around the office, which include advising the student admissions program. So if you've enjoyed a lot of the student panels that you've seen during the virtual open house, that's a club, an organization at Boston College that is open for anybody to join. So maybe I'll be, the viewership might be a few people that are in SAP if they get to join us at Boston College. Welcome aboard.
And Danielle?
Hi, everyone. Welcome. My name is Danielle Welles. I also am one of the Associate Directors of Admission. I have been at BC now for 13 years, going on year 14. And in terms of my territory, I have, for some reason, they gave me all the ski states. So I have all of Colorado, Utah, New Hampshire. I have sections of southeastern Massachusetts. And then I have some exciting territory, not that Colorado and Utah aren't exciting, but I have all of Europe with the exception of the UK and Switzerland. I have all of the Middle East, and I have all of the continent of Africa. So a pretty broad ranging number of schools and areas for me. And then in terms of my responsibilities within the office, one of the biggest responsibilities I have is I am the coordinator for our QuestBridge program, which Boston College became a QuestBridge partner last year. So this is our first inaugural incoming class.
Awesome, thank you. Now, as we get started here, I think it's important to note that despite the name of this event, the final Q&A, all of us in the Office of Undergraduate Admission are here to be continuous resources for you as you navigate this college search process. In fact, each one of us in the office, and as you heard from 2 of my colleagues, each one of us in the office have a specific territory and specific schools that we are assigned to all throughout the country, and as Danielle has demonstrated, all throughout the world as well. And we definitely encourage you to utilize the admission counselor lookup on our website, bc.edu/admission. And my colleagues are posting these links in the chat for you. But we definitely encourage you to use that so that you can look up who your contact is and reach out to them if you have further questions or need anything. And as I mentioned before too, this event is part of the Discover Boston College Virtual Open House. And whether this is your first session or maybe your 10th session, have no fear, we have recorded all of them. And so they all live on our bc.edu/visit website. And so you can watch these events on demand at your leisure. Many of these questions that we're going to be addressing today have ultimately been fleshed out more in depth in some of these other sessions. So I would encourage you to for sure make sure that you check those out because you'll be able to get some additional information. And then lastly, as you navigate this college application process, we encourage you to use the bc.edu/apply website. On that website, you'll find sections that have to do with each part of the application. And if you click into those sections, you'll also see short videos from our colleagues that can give you some more information and tips and tricks as you navigate applying to Boston College. So definitely encourage you to utilize those. But to get us started, I'm going to start by talking about one of the questions that we have been getting a lot these days, and that is, how is Boston College responding to COVID-19 on campus, and how do we see it affecting the admission process for this upcoming year? So currently we have been able to bring most of our students back to campus to live and study. Some students were granted the opportunity to take classes remotely, especially if it had to do with international reasons or medical reasons. But most of our students are living on campus and are taking classes either in a hybrid model, online model, or in-person model. And many students have a mixture of these different types of classes in their schedule. We have been able to do regular testing and been able to put in some safety measures for our community. And I know that our students have been very happy to be back on campus, even within this crazy time that we are, of course, living in. Now, in regards to the admission process for this upcoming year, it's important to note that Boston College is very intentional when we're considering requests to defer acceptance. Usually, when we think of a student who's looking to take a gap year to defer their acceptance, it's really supposed to be a year filled with purpose and enrichment, whether that's working, whether that's traveling, or partaking in some sort of activity. Now, of course, this past year did not really lend itself well to do that, of course. Now, that being said, there were many reasons, right, that student might have requested for personal issues to ultimately defer their acceptance. In general, Boston College receives a very small amount of deferral requests. The previous admission cycle, we only had 33 students who were approved for a gap year. And although it did increase this year, it only increased to about 58 students. And that's out of our entering class of just about 2,300 students. So I hope that calms you seniors in high school, your nerves a little bit, that it is going to have minimal impact on you seniors choosing to apply this year. So definitely, I hope that calms your nerves in that regard. Now, as a result of the access issues having to do with testing due to COVID-19, Boston College has gone test optional for this upcoming cycle. And we have been receiving a lot of questions about what that means. So Danielle, can you talk about what test optional means to Boston College and any recommendations for when to or not to submit scores?
Sure, absolutely. So I guess if there's any silver lining in the whole craziness that's taken place with regard to COVID this year, it's the fact that the vast majority of colleges and universities have gone test optional for this upcoming year. And every school is different. Some of them have extended it for beyond this year. Currently, Boston College is only doing it for the incoming first year class of 2025. And so by Boston College going test optional, what this means is you have the option of whether or not you submit your tests. Now, the vast majority of students out there are going to fall into one of three categories. There's going to be the students who haven't had an opportunity to access a test. Either they've had their test centers, closed down, they've had test dates canceled, they're not willing or able to get on a plane and fly 3 states over to take a test, which I've heard some students doing. So the decision is going to pretty much be made for those students. If they haven't had access to take a test as of yet, then in my honest opinion, why would you even bother? Why put yourself at risk? Why put yourself in harm's way? If the schools you're applying to have all been test optional, then you can take comfort in the fact that you can honor their word. They are test optional. The other cohort of students are going to be students who have been able to access a test in some way, shape, or form. There's going to be those students who like their test scores and feel that their test scores could help them and want them to be seen. And there's going to be other students who maybe aren't as excited about their test scores and are really kind of ambivalent about whether or not they should include their test scores or whether they should not. And regardless of kind of which of those three buckets you're falling into, every student has the right to determine for themselves whether or not they want their test score to be a part of their process, if they've had access to a test score. And if they haven't had access to a test score, you can take comfort in the fact that Boston College will not look at your application any differently. We're not going to favor those students who have submitted test scores over those students who haven't. The students who submit test scores, again, are students who want us to see their test scores and want us to utilize that piece of data as a factor in our decision process. The students who either don't have access to a test score or the students who choose not to submit a test score, we will not look at them any differently. For us, what's always been a real big part of the application review process at Boston College is more of a holistic one. So every piece of your application has certainly been taken into consideration or will be taken into consideration. For us, always the biggest piece is centered on academic rigor and academic performance. So in this new world of having a cohort of students who will be applying with test scores and a cohort who will be applying without, our review process is really not going to change that much because it always has been centered on taking all of those factors into account, with the greatest amount of weight being placed on what your high school offers, what you've chosen to take advantage of, and then how well you've done within that curriculum. So you can certainly rest assured that that will continue this upcoming year. Sometimes some students will ask questions as to, you know, does not having a test score prevent them from being considered for our merit scholarship program, our Cabelli Presidential Scholars Program? Absolutely not. Any student who applies to Boston College and submits their application by November 1st will automatically be considered for that scholarship. So again, there's going to be some students who have a score in their application. There's going to be some students who don't. It's completely up to you. Students who do have a test score oftentimes want to know, should I submit my test score? What's kind of the threshold of, you know, that fine line between I should or I shouldn't? And what we always recommend for students to do is to take a look at our mid 50% of accepted test scores for the class of 2024. So for last year, for the SAT, it was a 1420 to a 1510, and then a 33 to a 35 on the ACT. So if you comfortably fit within that mid 50% range, you can probably feel really confident in submitting your test scores. If you don't, then again, it's completely up to you if you choose to or not. But that is your decision and that is your choice.
Awesome, thank you. And then Danielle, you hinted at this, and knowing that test scores may or may not be one part of the application process, I feel like we always get a lot of questions about holistic review process, right? Like, what does that mean? What does that process look like? So Chris, can you talk a little bit about what the holistic review process means for us, and advice maybe for students as they're filling out this application, knowing that we're going to be looking at it holistically?
And with great respect to both you and Danielle, if there's a word that I hate more than the word hybrid, it's holistic. Because when it's used in this like reference point, it means that most colleges have spent years and years not looking at everything. Mm-hmm. And now holistic means we've discovered that there's other parts of the application besides an SAT score and a GPA. We've always done this. But I think that there's such, in a society that quantifies students' abilities so much, and where students get very much, transfixed by the numbers, and you could see it on an X and Y graph, when you log into Naviance, or when college counselors are giving you the evidence of whether you should get in. Everyone gets fixed on the numbers, but most people have the numbers. So admissions people don't have to look at the numbers. The numbers are all there. Everybody has the same numbers. Everybody has good grades. Everybody fills in more circles right than wrong with the number 2 pencil. Everybody can write an essay that has a topic sentence and descriptive sentences around it. It's the quality of these things. And I think that's where we get the exorbitant salary that we do. We earn it because we're able to dig deeper and spend time and use what our expertise is in, which is understanding the school that you've come from and looking at the choices that you've made academically and comparing them with what choices were possible at your school. Not worrying about what's going on at the private schools down the street that everyone gets A's at. Like, do we figure that out? Of course we figured it out. This is what we do. So instead of worrying about all that, we try to make it between you and us to understand all the choices you made. A lot of them are academic choices, but many of them are also independent and subjective choices with your time and your energy and your creativity and your leadership, and how you sort of bring your attitude and respect game into high school every day. Because we ask for letters of recommendation, and we ask for you to tell us your resume and the things that you've engaged in your community. I will tell you that in all these years in admissions, when people say, what makes a really good college application? I say, well, a really good high school student. And when they say, well, all right, well, what makes a really good high school student? I say, well, it's not that kid that puts their head down and collects every academic statistic possible. That kid isn't the best high school student. Now, believe me, I believe in academic statistics, and I want all you viewers to get as many as you can. but I also want you to paint your face for homecoming. And I want you to support your friends who are in the play. And I want you to run for office if you feel like running for office. And I want you to show generosity of spirit around your community and in your school and at your church. So being a good high school student means engaged in everything. That's what holistic means, is that we can see your excellence in all these other areas. Because holistic is what happens in universities. The word university is from community, the community of scholars, not kennel, where we put everybody in boxes for 23 hours and then we let them out for an hour and go to class and they put them in the box. It's like an ongoing thing. So this holistic is just reminding everybody that you want to get transfixed by the numbers, you go ahead. I mean, I think my colleague, Miss Wells, told you very, very clearly that this is the year where you even control the numbers and what numbers come to us. Great. But don't sleep on all these other parts of the application, because when colleges have a bounty of bright students to choose from, they're looking for fit to their culture. They're looking for students who've maximized their engagement. You know, if you guys, for 4 years at your school, if the only thing you've done is play one season of JV golf, well, what do we think? Because we're not in your hometown and we're not surrounded by all your friends. How are you going to engage with us if you've never showed any engagement back in your hometown and at your home school? So holistic, that's a code word for, have you excelled in other areas other than academics? We expect great academic engagement. We expect you to be hitting on all cylinders when it comes to academics. But what you're going to add to the community gets us really excited, gets us to think that you're going to be sharing these things with classmates, with roommates, all for 4 years of being in our community. So we have an eye on those things as much as we have an eye on using our skills to understand your academic prowess. So that's how again, no disrespect for those who like the word holistic. And I have used it on occasion, but I just think that that's what it is. I mean, if we do our job very well, I think, at Boston College, you guys do your job very well at Boston College. This has always been what we've done. It's just now that we use the word holistic because I guess some colleges don't do it that way.
I never realized I could get Chris so worked up by using the word holistic. I love this. Yeah. Thank you.
Use the word hybrid. You'll see me get equally.
There we go. All right. Well, now that we've talked a little bit about the application piece, let's talk about what it means or when to apply, right? So Boston College has recently become an early decision school. So I want to talk through what that means and what the deadlines mean real quick. So Boston College is an early decision and a regular decision school. We're relatively new to the early decision game here. We used to offer early action, but the reason we ultimately changed was because as we saw application numbers increasing through this early action round, we noticed that it was harder and harder for us to figure out who was intentional about applying to Boston College and who was serious about applying to Boston College. So we decided to switch to early decision. Now, early decision is binding, right? You apply to one early decision school at a time. If you apply to Boston College early decision, congratulations. Welcome to Boston College. I like to say you are entering a committed relationship with us, where you are saying you are going to come to Boston College and be a Boston College Eagle. For Boston College, we have two options. So you can apply early decision 1, which is a November 1st deadline, or early decision 2, which is a January 1st deadline. I get asked this question all the time. What is the difference between the two? And it is the date. It is the date of when Boston College becomes your number one choice. If we are your number one choice as of November 1st, great. We welcome your application early decision 1. If we are your number one choice as of January 1st, great. We welcome your application for early decision 2. At the same time, we are very well aware of the fact that you have hundreds and thousands of options for schools. And if you do not know where we fall on your list yet, we get that. There's a lot of events and a lot of information to absorb as you go through this college search process. And we also do have the regular decision option, which is also a January 1st deadline for you to apply. Another question that we've especially been getting as we've started to do early decision is all about the acceptance rate between the two. So we will say that after our first year of early decision, the acceptance rate for early decision was about 37%. That's for both early decision 1 and 2. And for regular decision, it was about 24%. Now, when you apply to Boston College, we do ask that you apply to one of our 4 undergraduate divisions. So it's the Morrissey College of Arts and Sciences, the Carroll School of Management, the Lynch School of Education and Human Development, or the Cannell School of Nursing? Another question that we get often is about the difference between these divisions and the admission process. So Chris, can you talk a little bit about the different, or if there's a specific division that's more competitive than another, or if we're looking for different things when we're reviewing applicants to each of these divisions?
Great question, Lauren. The answer is not really. Our admission rate is pretty similar across the board, and it's that way for a couple of reasons. One, as I'm sure all of our viewers who become experts at Boston College have now deduced, is that we do have a core curriculum at Boston College. So there's no easy way out of Boston College. You're going to have to spend some time in the humanities and social sciences and perhaps a little bit of the natural sciences. And that's uniform for everybody. So there's going to be an 8 to maybe 12 or 13 course unifier of nurses and social workers and business students and biologists, et cetera. So you need to be able to function in the humanities and social sciences and natural sciences. So we don't want students, certainly on the way in, to be very imbalanced in terms of their academic successes, because you should expect that you're going to have to be literate in a lot more than just what you plan on having your major be during your time with us. But I do think human nature comes into play, because I think all of us in our business, when we see someone who's applying to nursing, I think we sort of try to picture that student as a nurse. And we have come to understand that many students who found the profession of nursing or are interested in it, sometimes they've had parents that have been doctors or nurses or in the medical field. Or you look at their extracurricular activities and they're full of nurturing experiences, whether it's been volunteering in a hospital or becoming a CNA, or maybe you read in an application essay that someone's had, trials and tribulations that are medically related. So those aren't requirements. We don't require everyone to be sick to be, to apply to the nursing school, but we certainly look for the threads. And I think that's an interesting one to see, because nursing is something in here, and it's in here, and it's here. And nursing is such a specific group of skills. Human nature kind of kicks in when we look at someone who's applying to the nursing school. I'd say the only other way that we might look at someone a little bit differently might be in a business school. I think all of us have come to the understanding that, a lot of the courses that line up in the requirements in the business school and the electives of the business school require a lot of quantitative and linear thinking. So I don't know if that necessarily changes the way that we look, and it doesn't really change the admission rate, but I do think that if a student's math skills are among their best, or maybe that's their best subject, I think that's very much in line with the school and management curriculum, even though there are going to be arts and sciences courses and other courses. I think if you're applying to the business school and math is your worst subject, and you're looking to take the least amount of math possible in your college career, well, I don't know if business is a good match for you anyway, just because of knowing how much linear thinking and quantitative thinking's in it. But I do think that would sometimes stick in our heads when we're trying to find, is that a good place for you at Boston College? But I don't necessarily, because students switch their majors and change their mind and start pre-med and end up pre-law, I don't think we overthink it much. I think for the most part, we look at the overwhelming, abilities that a student has all over the map in terms of academics. And we don't overthink it and saying, well, we're going to accept them, but we don't want them to change because we don't think that, no, we really do have a very even way of looking at applicants and expecting. I think we have high expectations of what they've been able to do academically when it comes to critical thinking and analysis and writing. So I don't necessarily think that we overthink it too much in what we do. I just gave you a couple of examples that maybe when people are sorting out what might be a good fit for them, what we would apply in our thinking when their application comes in.
Great. Something we're really excited to be adding to one of those divisions this year, specifically the Morrissey College of Arts and Sciences, is an engineering program. So for you seniors, you will have the opportunity to apply to our engineering program. It is a human-centered engineering program, and that major will live within that Morrissey College of Arts and Sciences. So since this is a new program, Danielle, could you talk a little bit about this distinctive program at BC, and also what type of student we think would maybe fit well for this program?
Sure. So I'm, super excited about welcoming this major onto campus, in part because I feel like it's the one major, or maybe not the one major that best encapsulates what a Boston College, what a Jesuit education strives to do. So the way I typically describe this human-centered engineering program is that it is a program for individuals who are interested in using engineering, the technology and the science behind it, in a way to be impactful in the lives of others, particularly in the area of energy, healthcare, and the environment. So it certainly has elements of a standard engineering program. It is primarily a general engineering course that students will be pursuing, but it's so much more because it really kind of connects with what BC as a Jesuit institution strives to do. And that is to figure out how do we use our education in a way that can be a force for good, that can be impactful in the lives of others. And so one of the elements of this engineering program is the fact that, yes, students will be able to go out and get engineering degrees, but it's going to necessitate individuals who certainly like kind of that technical aspect, that science, that math piece. But as Chris kind of talked about the value and the purpose of a core curriculum in liberal arts, these are also going to be students who are very invested and interested in kind of studying the liberal arts or studying that particular major within the context of a liberal arts environment. That's one of the reasons why it's housed within our Morrissey College of Arts and Sciences. It's one of the reasons why, we require everybody on campus, regardless of what their major is, to complete that foundational university core curriculum by the time they graduate. It will certainly involve a lot of project-based learning, and it will also necessitate individuals to engage with other communities. The program's kind of structured in a way that they are going to be doing some projects in other countries. And it's kind of like figuring out how, like, for example, if you're an individual who feels that, access to clean water is a basic human right. Someone like that might be interested in a major like this because they perhaps want to try and come up with some sort of technology that's going to bring fresh water to communities that don't have access to it. And not just simply individuals who are going to descend upon these communities and kind of come from this position of power where I'm the college student, I'm the engineering major, therefore I know what your community needs. It's going to be individuals who are really able to humble themselves and to engage and interact with communities so that they can partner with communities and work together with them to create a solution that's going to be impactful in their lives. So it is going to be someone who has that science technology area of expertise or interest, but simultaneously it's going to be that person who wants to engage with others, who is interested in issues of social justice or issues that plague different communities around the world, or here in the U.S. as well. So it's definitely going to be a little bit different. But again, I can't think of another program that is so in line with who we are and so clearly identifies what our mission is as a university and particularly as a Jesuit Catholic institution.
Awesome. And I always say at the end of the day, despite how much we love our jobs, we are not the true experts about Boston College. We are not. We are very well aware of that. And the true expert is going to be the current student, right? And when you're deciding where to go to school, it becomes even more important for you to be able to engage and talk to students about what it's like to be on campus in student life. So, Chris, can you talk a little bit about the best way for some of our viewers to make sure that they have the opportunity to engage maybe with a student and learn more about student life on campus?
Hey, Lauren, I appreciate your introduction to this as saying that for the last 20-something years, what I've been doing is not leading me to be the expert at anything.
Sorry.
That's fine. That's fine.
No big deal.
I mean, that's my own crisis that I'll be able to work on after this session. But you're absolutely right. And Lauren and Danielle and my job at BC is associate director for student volunteers. My job is to create and maintain situations where Boston College students can connect with prospective students and families. Like that's the best job ever, because that's where it is. It's getting families like the viewers here excited about college. Like college is the best. I went to college 30 years ago and I never left. Like, college is the best. And right now it's so unorthodox, this search, and no one got to go on their East Coast trip and get a bunch of sweatshirts and have coffee at swanky coffee shop. Like, so right now, like, it's not as much fun. But this is where students play such a huge role at our school, using virtual opportunities to, I mean, our tours, where we usually have a spunky tour guide in the front of 30 family members walking around campus. Now I have a team of 3 students that take a microphone and a camera, walk out, answer questions on the fly, walk in the rain, see their friends. Now it's dark out when they finish at 5:30 or 5:45. Like we're having a blast talking about life at Boston College, not scripted. Like, I hope that you guys have come to find out that a lot of schools, and certainly BC, you talk about things that are very much Jesuit. The way we have our volunteers speak to prospective families is very Jesuit. I ask student volunteers to mind their experiences and reflect on their choices, and then talk to families and students about Boston College. I don't have any talking points. I never have talking points. I don't have a script. I don't have time for script. Every tour is a little different because every tour guide's a little different. So I really do encourage all of you guys. And I know you go into it and you're like, oh, here comes the propaganda machine of School X. And yeah, I mean, you're talking to students who like have a great time at a college. So you're going to get people excited about their school. They're not going to start their first 30 minutes of tour saying, let me tell you what sucks about the school that I go to. But you're going to find so many little hidden things embedded in the way they present their school. It's priceless in terms of what that's going to mean. So we do an information session every day, Monday through Friday. And even an information session is less Lauren Riley and more Boston College students, with great deference to Lauren Riley, who was once a Boston College student.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to hear from students that are living the life. And then a tour follows that every day. In addition to that, since we don't have a shadow program, and many of you might go to a high school where there's a shadow program, be it Titan for a day, or we had an Eagle for a day. But obviously we're not welcoming visitors right now in person. So we have Eagle for a discussion. Sign up and have a 30-minute conversation with some sophomore boy from Philadelphia who's sitting in his dorm room and is willing to answer questions about being a computer science major, playing intramural sports, and studying, studying at BC. So we're trying our best to create situations where students can engage with students, because Lauren hit it right on the head. Like, at the end of the day, these are the people that you're going to be with for not just 4 years, but you're going to be dealing with them forever. Reunions, and you're going to see them in the airport, and they're going to be wearing a sweatshirt, and you're going to have to talk to them about the football team, and it's going to follow you wherever you go professionally, into grad school. Like, this is your community for a long time. So you might as well get used to the people that go here. And I think the best way to find that out is to use the admissions office. I mean, I know you might have friends or friends of friends that go to BC. Use them too. You're someone who's your, golfing buddy with your dad, or someone who your mom knows from high school. If that can get you a connection to BC, great. But I'll tell you, our programming isn't just a shill telling you about Boston College. Like, we're legit, authentic, and we're going to tell you what you need to get you excited about college in the first place, and let you know about BC, and let you know if this is the right place for you. So please take advantage of student admission program opportunities. I mean, that's where we really excel. And I think that if you were able to come see us in person, you'd really see the difference between how we present ourselves and how other schools are willing to do that for their visitors.
Great, thank you. And then the last question I have before we turn it over to the Q&A is, let's talk about financial aid and scholarships, right? Those can be a very important part for students and families as they're navigating this college choice process. So Danielle, can you talk a little bit about a brief overview of what financial aid looks like for Boston College? And you touched on a little bit earlier, but that Gabelli Presidential Scholarship, who would be an ideal candidate for that type of scholarship?
Sure. So I'm actually going to I'll start with on that point and talk about the Gabelli Presidential Scholarship Program. So this is our one and only merit scholarship program at BC. And currently the way that the process works is you apply, submit your application by November 1st. You do not need to be an early decision 1 or early decision 2 candidate. You can certainly be a regular decision candidate. You just have to hit submit on your college application on or before November 1st to automatically be considered. There is a question in the Common App this year about if you'd like to be considered. I'm not really sure who would say no, but if you say no, then I guess we wouldn't consider you. But all you got to do is literally just submit your application. And the process is a pretty wide-ranging one because it starts off with us reviewing these applications. And as we review them, we set aside ones that we feel that might be competitive for the scholarship. Usually that's a number somewhere between 150 to say 200. And then over the course of a couple of days, we narrow that number down and we'll invite about 50 students to interview for the scholarship. That interview process will last 3 days. So it's a pretty intensive interview. We fly you to campus. Not sure if it's going to be in person or virtual this year, but we'll see. And then after the course of those 3 days, the stakeholders in the Presidential Scholars Program will then select the students they're going to make offers to. And typically we enroll 15 students per year. It is a full tuition scholarship for all 4 years. It is incredible if you can get it, but let's be real. There are approximately 2,300 incoming students in a first-year class, and only 15 of them will have been identified as being recipients of the Gabelli Presidential Scholars Program. And there's a reason why it's limited, and I'll get into that in a minute. But when it comes to what we're looking for, it's honestly pretty hard to describe. So there's 2 parts. There's the academic part, which is the easy part, because students who academically, they're the best of the best. They typically are taking the best program in their school. They have the best grades. If they're submitting test scores, they have test scores in the upper echelon of the ACT or the SAT range. Super easy to spot. The hard part is that they also have to bring some sort of other dynamic to the table that's, as I said, really hard to describe. How I always try to define it is that these are students who are doing things above and beyond what most normal high school kids are doing. That could be in any area. It could be in athletics, it could be in service, it could be in leadership, it could be in the performing arts. But they're just doing something that makes you just, as an admissions counselor, makes you sit up and take notice and say, oh my God, I want to meet this kid. The way my colleague Sue describes it is she says, like, she gets goosebumps. Like, she'll read their application and all of a sudden she gets goosebumps and super excited and just really wants to have this kid on campus. So I recognize, like, there's not a clear defining line for kind of a merit scholarship. It's not like we sit there and say anybody over a 3.7 GPA automatically gets a merit scholarship, because we'd probably be giving it to the vast majority, if not all, of the incoming class. So it is a little hard to kind of wrap your head around, but just students who are really kind of showing that other level of excellence in a different, we got the academic part down, but as Chris was kind of alluding to in terms of wanting to see what are the areas of your life that you really kind of demonstrate passion for and energy and put energy into, that's what we're kind of looking at when we're selecting students for the scholarship. Now, one of the reasons why we only have 15 is because Boston College is an institution that is very much committed to being an affordable option for families. We are very much committed to making sure that families have the resources and means they need in order to afford a Boston College education. And as a private institution, we're going to be more expensive than any home state institution you might be looking at. So the reason why we only offer 15 merit scholarships per year is because we want the bulk of our financial aid resources to go towards need-based aid. So for making Boston College, as I said, available to families whom without financial aid, this would not be an option for them. The ways in which we do so is, number one, we are need blind in our admissions process, which means we never take a family's inability or ability to pay for a year's worth of tuition as a factor in our decision process. Our decision process is based on your personal and your academic qualities alone. Part 2 of that is the fact that we are a school that's committed to meeting 100% of the demonstrated need. So when families submit financial aid forms, they get some information back that tells them how much they can afford to contribute towards their child's education. Boston College is committed to meeting that gap between what the family can afford to contribute and what our actual cost of attendance is. It's important to understand that sometimes when people look at the cost of attendance of a place like BC, they automatically make a judgment on it and make this assumption that wow, that's a school that costs, upwards of $78,000 a year. That's not an option for me. That's not a school that I can afford. But it's really important to understand that what the cost of a school is does not necessarily equate to what the cost might be for your individual family. And that's where meeting 100% of demonstrated need comes in. It really is a relatively rare occurrence because in the US, there's only about 20 private schools that are both need blind and meet full need. So again, Boston College being one of them. This is something that is very important to us, and something that we definitely want to continue to have in place, especially in light of so many financial challenges that are going on now with regard as a result of COVID. But that kind of gives you a little bit of a sense as to what the possibilities are with regard to our merit scholarship program. But certainly the vast majority of students who are coming to Boston College are coming with need-based aid.
Great. All right, now looking at the Q&A here, we do have some good questions coming in, so we'll open it up. One of the first questions we have is about the COVID section, or the COVID question, and what in that section we feel like we need to hear, or what does a student need to tell us in that section or not tell us. I know there's some concerns with, do I have to mention there that I wasn't able to take testing, or is it more about personal effects of COVID? So does anybody want to start us off by talking what we're looking for, what we think we want to see in that COVID section on the Common Application?
So for me, one of the things I would say is that, the Common Application instituted this section this year for students to be able to convey any pieces of information that they feel brought some challenges with regards to their educational experience in light of COVID. Understand that we all are living under COVID, like the whole entire world is under COVID. So the whole entire world has been impacted by this pandemic. So I would encourage students to really utilize that section, not to necessarily share some kind of basic things that, we all understand that, oh, you had to leave school, in the middle of the spring, or you weren't able to visit colleges over the summer or fall. Those are things we understand. I would say if COVID has impacted you or your family significantly, if, let's say you are in a household where you have a parent or guardian who's an essential worker, and maybe that brought some real stress on your family, or financially as a result of COVID, maybe your parent was a business owner and their business had to shut down and that's challenged your family. Or educationally, if you found that, you didn't have access to reliable internet, and now all of a sudden you had to pivot in the spring and all of your classes were online and you weren't able to access your coursework, and it really impacted your ability to be a strong academic student. I think those are kind of the type of things that personally I would be encouraging a student to share within that particular space. Again, there's things that certainly has impacted us all. We know that you haven't been able to continue with some of your sports and activities in the spring or through the summer. We know that, perhaps living in this world of Zoom hasn't been the easiest transition for you. So to really utilize that space for those things that have significantly impacted you, either personally or academically.
And real quick, Danielle nailed it. It's just, there are things in the application that you have to say, and there are things in the application that you want to say. You should want to say something in your essay. This is your chance. You shouldn't have to say how this pandemic has affected you, but you have to say that. So use that section for what you have to say. Use the essay for what you want to say. That message, that what you've observed and what's inspired you and what you've gone through. I often say that many people use the additional information session for when they have mono, and that's good, because we don't want every essay to be about mono, like how awful that would be. So you write what you have to say in that section. What you want to say should be your college essay. That's the thing that you've been thinking about for a long time before you heard of coronavirus.
And then I get this question a lot. When considering extracurriculars for an applicant, is somebody disadvantaged if they only have a few extracurriculars that take up more time than having multiple extracurricular activities? Who wants to jump in there?
Well, I mean, I think all of us in admissions, had very active college and high school lifestyles. And like I ran cross country and it sucked. Like I didn't start my homework till 7. No one ever came to my meets. I was always hungry and tired. Like, so, I mean, yeah, I know that running cross country is a huge deal. I can only imagine what football is. And, or if you're on Model UN, like, in the middle of the night, you wake up and you're like, oh, I know how Japan can actually be part of this treaty. And well, everyone else doesn't understand that. But now that kid just lost a night of sleep because he's figuring out how Japan is going to navigate through the Model UN meeting next week. Or the 2 or 3 week run up to a production in theater. Like those are grueling days, as grueling as any football practice, as grueling as any dance recital. I mean, I think, give us some credit. I mean, I do think if you're bringing something to the table that we don't know, like if you're in the garage crafting canoes out of wood, like, I don't know. I'm assuming that that's really difficult to do. I don't need to know the hours. I just figured that that's a pretty labor taxing process. But if you're talking about sports or dance or music or clubs, I mean, I think all of us who've been doing this for a while and see it in the college level and had experience at the high school level, we know that not all extracurriculars are equal, and we don't treat them equally. There are some that are more taxing and some that are more grueling and some that are more visible than others, and we treat them all differently. Just the important thing is that they sort of represent you and what you're about, and maybe it's 2 or 3 things, but you give it your heart and soul. I think that's as good as anybody else's resume if they have 2 or 3 times as many things. I mean, that's my take on it.
Yeah, we're not about checking off boxes, and it's not like were they captain of the sport? Yes, check. Were they, class president? Yes, check. It's really about, we're mostly interested in seeing where you put your energy and your attention, what activities you put your energy and attention into. And, we're a university, we're a community of individuals of 9,400 undergraduate students. So many different types of students, so many different types of interests. So there's not one kind of set mold. It's really just looking to see, what is this particular applicant in front of me? Where do they invest their energy and their time? And how do I feel like that's going to enhance our community here at Boston College? So mostly about quality over quantity.
Great. And we have a couple logistic questions that are coming in. So questions about early decision, one, and what happens to a student? If they get accepted, great. They could get denied, of course. And then if they're deferred, are they deferred to the early decision 2 or the regular decision pool? So to clarify that, students who apply early decision 1 would be deferred to the regular decision pool. So just to clarify that for students. And then we do have the question about the 4 divisions. Again, are students able to, or is there a process when it comes to doing an internal transfer once they are at BC? And what does that look like? Is that an option for students?
Yeah, the internal transfer process varies by division, but there's an easy way to look at it, right? Is that one of the, I think, the advantages of having a very even admission rate across the board is that that's the signal for us to tell you that if you're leaning towards a professional school, apply to it now. These are direct entry schools of nursing, schools of education, and a business school. And if you apply to other universities much larger than us, then you have to spend a year in general studies waiting to internally transfer. So here's your chance. Instead of waiting for people to leave the School of Business as a sophomore, you have your pick of seats by applying to it as a freshman. So we certainly want to encourage people to do that. Now, there is movement out of the professional schools. If after a semester of nursing, you realize that you don't like the sight of blood and you don't particularly like people, they will let you leave the School of Nursing and go to the Marcy College of Arts and Sciences, no questions asked. The same with business. If after a semester of business you want to move to the arts and sciences, no questions asked. What's more difficult is going to these smaller, finite professional schools where the ship has already left the dock when you come in as a freshman. As a freshman, what as a French major is going to make you think that you want to be a nurse? So there isn't much for you to gain in terms of knowledge to make you a better candidate for an internal transfer. So these are difficult, and they're smaller programs. So They're really only contingent on the people that are leaving them. The business school, which is probably what we get the most questions on, they have 10 spots every year. 10. And they give them out by lottery. So you can take your chances with that, or you can apply to it as a senior in high school when there are 575 spots in the School of Business. So again, our system is set up so students apply for what they want and they don't fool around. Is there internal transferring? Yes, but it's minimal. Is there crossing over? Oh God. The most popular minor at BC is finance. And that's all students from the arts and sciences taking it. And there are students that are in the business school that are double majoring in political science, and everybody in the School of Education has a double major, and some kids have 2 minors, and oh yeah, there's a lot of crossing over. There are a few restrictions, but there's a lot of crossing over. So if you want to be pre-med and pre-law, go for it. You can do things like that. But in terms of the schools, again, those professional schools, because they're smaller, consider it that way. They're smaller, the seats are finite. Take your chance now. And then if you don't like it, you can move to the bigger program. Moving from the bigger to the smaller is really tough. And I don't know if that's going to be the best way for you to proceed. Whereas I'm telling you that if you're leaning towards nursing, business, or education, it might be the best time to try it now.
Great. And then question about back to test scores here. If we are applying early decision, are we able to submit test scores after November 1st? So for tests that are taken after maybe late October or after November 1st?
Right. So currently the way, the last date that we are accepting test scores is, I believe it's the October 3rd date for ED for the SAT and the October 10th date for the ACT. So part of the challenge with early decision is the fact that it is a sprint. It is like we have 3 weeks to read all these applications, get them reviewed, get decisions made, and get them out the door. So we don't really have a lot of time to wait around for new pieces of information to come in. What I will say is, for students who identify or indicate in their common application that they will be applying as a test optional applicant, if in the interim you take a test and you would like that test to be considered, if we have not reviewed your application yet, then we can have that test score added to your file and then reviewed within the application process. If that ship has sailed, then we're not going to have an opportunity to review that. So you really do have to be cognizant of the deadline dates and then kind of the testing protocols. Now, I do understand, like I've had a number of students who have emailed me and said that the test that's being given in their school is going to be later October. So again, I've advised those students to go ahead and apply test optional. And then if their scores come in time, they can always email our admission office or email the admission counselor directly who works with their high school to let them know that they have this test score. And now if they'd like to be considered not test optional and submit their scores, they can.
Great. And then we have a question that I love here. Is there a trait that you have seen over the years that best describes a Boston College student? A common characteristic or trait?
More years, so I'll just quickly go first, but I would say multidimensional is typically what I see. It's rare that I come across a BC student who I'm only majoring in one thing or I'm only involved in one activity. They tend to be students who really take advantage of all the opportunities that exist on campus, whether that's academically or extracurricularly, and really kind of invest themselves in those pursuits. So they always kind of impress me with the breadth of their experience, the breadth of their interests. So I tend to find that they have that kind of like, they tend to be very lateral students, right? They're not very linear and it's kind of like this one highway that they're on. They tend to be able to be very flexible and be able to kind of move between different areas of interest.
I think that's a good one. I would add humble. I think all the people that are in the admissions office on this call know the talent wide-ranging talent of the incoming class every year. But if you were ever to ask a student about their success at BC, they would say, "Oh, I've been really lucky," or "My roommate's even smarter than me," or like they're so quick to sing the praises of other people. And as the advisor to the student admissions program, where bragging is allowed, they very rarely brag about their academic exploits. We need to pull it out of them. And I just find that that's not the way it is at a lot of other academic communities. At a lot of other communities, you don't have to wait for someone to tell you how smart they are. Here, I think there's just this understanding that everyone's really bright. And what else you got? And it's all these other relationships that people have, and the service they do, and the mission they're about. And that humility is something that is so much a part of our culture that we kind of take it for granted. Because again, when you hear other really high-powered students talk about what they've done, I always say, well, BC students do that stuff, but they just never talk about it. They just do it. And then they go out and they have fun with their friends or go to a football game. They don't rest on those achievements. And that's what I've always really liked about BC students. They're humble. They're very humble.
Love it. And then my last question that we have here is, with all these students and families on this call, do you, either of you or both of you, have any sort of tagline of advice as these students navigate this search, admission, application process?
Sure, I'll go real quick. Just ignore the noise, and you're going to be in a school where people are going to get into schools and not get into schools and apply to schools, and I heard this one got in, and there's so many factors in why people get in and why people are interested in schools. Just you don't know what's going on with them, and they might not even tell you the truth. Just take care of it. This is your business, and don't be afraid to celebrate the successes of your friends, even if they get into the schools that you might be really interested in, because there's enough success to go around. And these times are hard enough as they are, that you don't want to lose friendships and lose the momentum of a senior year because of how focused you are in attaining some prize in college admissions. Just, do your best, put it all together, write the essay you dreamed of, and see where it goes. And I bet you'll end up at where you belong. But don't get yourself all wound up in the noise from your friends in this high school and everyone at the cookout and all the people on your softball team. Just do your best and do it for yourself. And I think you'll end up someplace great.
Yeah, I echo everything that Chris said. I think it's important for students to kind of run their own race. I guess what I would say is just breathe. I think so much associated with this process can induce a lot of stress and anxiety for students and their families. And this should really be an exciting process. Yeah, it should be a little nerve-wracking, but it should be an exciting process. You're in the process of figuring out where you're going to select for your next home for 4 years. Who are the people that are going to shape you? What are the classes that are going to influence you? How you're going to change and develop and grow, and all the amazing experiences you're going to have over the course of 4 years. So as Chris said, I think we all kind of believe that people end up where they're meant to be, but just breathe. We're living in the midst of a pandemic. We got all sorts of other kinds of craziness going on in our world. Like the college application process, it is very central and important, but there are a lot of other things in life that are important. And you have a unique privilege to be able to go to college. And never lose sight of that. Never lose sight of that. We can get very caught up in which college and which one's better than this one and all that stuff. But as Chris said, just ignore the noise. Focus on you. Focus on kind of your own journey and just breathe. And everything, I promise, will work itself out.
Great. Love it. Well, I want to thank, of course, Chris and Danielle for being here. And I want to thank everybody for joining us this afternoon. I hope this was helpful. I hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. I know we did not make it to all of the questions. So if you do have additional questions, again, we encourage you to use that counselor lookup tool to reach out to your counselor. And of course, go to our bc.edu/visit website as well, where you can connect with our students, our student admission program volunteers, and chat with current students. And then, of course, utilize that bc.edu/apply page as well. Thank you again for joining us. We wish you all the best sincerely with this college search and application process. And if we can help you in any way, please do not hesitate to reach out to us. Okay. Have a great weekend, everybody. Bye.
Thank you. Good luck.